I want you to think about the last time you were completely alone in the dark. Not just regular dark. I mean the kind of dark where you can't see your hand in front of your face. The kind of dark where every single sound makes your heart stop for a half second. Now imagine that darkness is looking back at you. I'm going to share 3 stories with you tonight. 2 of them happened to people I know personally. 1 of them happened to me, and I still don't have an explanation for any of them. So get comfortable. Turn the lights on if you need to. Because once you hear these, you're going to think twice before going outside after dark. This happened to my cousin Marcus about 4 years ago. He was 19 at the time and living in a small town in rural Tennessee. The kind of place where your nearest neighbor is a mile down the road and cell service cuts out the moment you step off the highway. Marcus loved hiking. He'd go out almost every weekend with just a backpack and a water bottle, following trails he'd memorized since childhood. He knew those woods better than he knew his own house. Or at least, he thought he did. It was a Saturday in late October. The leaves were turning and the air had that cold bite to it that makes everything feel a little more alive. Marcus had decided to try a trail on the far side of Miller's Ridge, a stretch he'd heard about from his dad but had never actually walked himself. He set out around noon and everything was fine for the first hour or so. Normal sounds, birds, wind through the dry leaves, the occasional crack of a branch under his boots. Nothing unusual. Then around mile 3, the birds stopped. Now, if you spend any time in the woods, you know that when the birds go quiet, something is wrong. Animals don't just stop making noise for no reason. Marcus noticed it immediately. He slowed down, looked around. The trees were still. The air felt heavier somehow, like the woods were holding their breath. He kept walking, but slower now, more careful. And that's when he saw it. At the edge of the tree line, maybe 40 yards off the trail, something was standing between 2 oak trees. It was tall. Too tall. He said it looked like a man, but the proportions were wrong. The arms too long, the head slightly too large, and it was completely still, just standing there, facing him. Marcus froze. His first instinct was that it was another hiker. But hikers move. Hikers acknowledge you. Whatever this was just stood there, watching. He started walking again, faster this time, keeping his eyes forward. But every few seconds he'd glance back over his shoulder. And every single time that shape had moved closer to the trail. Not running, not rushing, just repositioning, like it was pacing him. By the time Marcus hit mile 4, the thing was parallel to him, walking through the trees at the same speed he was. He could hear nothing, no footsteps, no breathing. Just the visual of this tall, wrong-looking silhouette moving between the trunks, keeping pace, getting slightly closer with each glance. Marcus ran. He said he ran harder than he'd ever run in his life. He didn't stop until he hit the trailhead parking lot and got into his truck. He sat there with the engine running for 20 minutes, hands shaking, watching the tree line. Nothing came out. He never went back to Miller's Ridge. And to this day, he says what scared him most wasn't the thing itself. It was the way it moved. Quiet. Patient. Like it had done this before, and it knew it didn't need to rush. This one is mine. This is the one I still have trouble talking about, even years later. 3 years ago, I went on a solo camping trip to a remote cabin in upstate New York. A friend had lent me the keys. It was completely off the grid. No Wi-Fi, no cell service. The nearest town was about 12 miles away on a dirt road. Exactly the kind of place you go when you want to disappear for a while. I arrived late afternoon, unpacked my stuff, made a fire. The cabin was small. One main room, a bedroom, a bathroom. I checked everything when I arrived. Closets, under the bed, bathroom. Old habit, nothing. I went to bed around 10. The fire had died down and the cabin was dark and cold and completely quiet. I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up at 2:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone the moment my eyes opened. I didn't know what woke me. I just was suddenly awake, alert. The way you get when something is wrong, but you haven't identified it yet. And then I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Steady breathing. Coming from the corner of the bedroom. I did not move. I lay completely still with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening. And it was unmistakable. Something, was breathing in the corner of that room. Slow. Deliberate. Like it had been there for a while and was completely comfortable. I reached under my pillow and grabbed the flashlight I always keep there. My hand was shaking so badly I nearly dropped it. I counted to 3 in my head. Then I pointed it at the corner and turned it on. Nothing was there, but the breathing had stopped the exact moment I turned the light on. I did not sleep again that night. I sat in the center of the bed with the flashlight on until sunrise. When morning came, I packed my car and left. I told my friend the cabin was great and that I'd had a wonderful time. I never told him what actually happened. I've asked myself 1,000 times if it was a dream, but I wasn't asleep. I know the difference. And whatever was in that corner, it was real. And I think it knew I could hear it, because it only stopped when I looked. The last story comes from a woman named Sarah, who sent it to me through a mutual friend. She gave me permission to share it. She just asked me not to use her last name. After you hear this, you'll understand why. Sarah and her boyfriend Derek were hiking in the Great Smoky Mountains, a popular trail, well marked, usually busy on weekends. This was a Thursday though, so the trail was pretty empty. They passed maybe 2 or 3 other groups the whole day. Late in the afternoon, about a mile from the trailhead, they came across a man sitting alone on a log beside the path. He looked to be in his mid-40s. Normal clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt. No backpack, no water bottle, no gear of any kind. He looked up as they passed and smiled. Said, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" They agreed, kept walking. Normal interaction. Forgot about it within 5 minutes. They got back to their car, drove the 2 hours home, stopped for gas, picked up dinner, and arrived at their apartment building around 8 p.m. Sarah got out of the car, went to the trunk to grab their bags. And when she turned around, the man from the trail was standing across the street, watching their building. She grabbed Derek's arm. He turned and looked. Same man. Same flannel shirt. Hands in his pockets. Just standing there, watching. Derek started walking toward him, and the man turned and walked calmly around the corner. By the time Derek reached the corner, the street was empty in both directions. They called the police. The officers came, took a report, said there wasn't much they could do but to keep their doors locked and report anything else suspicious. The officers left. That night, around 1 a.m., Sarah heard something outside their apartment door. A very faint sound, almost like someone shifting their weight. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The man was standing directly in front of their door, facing it, Not knocking, not doing anything, just standing there. Sarah shook Derek awake. He called 911 immediately. Officers arrived within 4 minutes. When they opened the door, the hallway was empty. The building's security footage showed nothing. There was a gap in the recording. 3 minutes of footage just missing. Sarah and Derek were out of that apartment within a week. She told me she still doesn't take hiking trips anymore, and she checks her rearview mirror the entire drive home every single day. She says the thing that broke her most wasn't seeing him at the trail, or outside her building, or outside her door. It was the fact that he never seemed to be in a hurry, because in her mind, that means he wasn't afraid of getting caught. And that means he's done this before.